being played by all of the biggest YouTubers at the time, such as PewDiePie,
What a fucking
Yogscast,
I don't know what I'm doing.
Markiplier,
We'll start an OnlyFans.
and more. To figure out what made the game so successful though, I say we boot it up and see for ourselves, to which we are instantly welcomed by one of the most artistically enticing soundtracks of any game I've ever played. Loading in, we pick our character and wake up in the world, being taunted by the game's main antagonist, Maxwell. The HUD instantly shows us 4 of the main things that help to separate this game from the others in its genre. First is health, self-explanatory. Second is hunger, also fairly easy to understand, but what truly turns this game into something special is the third meter, sanity. Sanity can be affected by so many different things. Out at dark, your sanity is going to be dropping. Eating something you shouldn't be? Time to take your meds, Grandpa. Doing something you shouldn't? Be ready for that meter to show you what dementia does to the brain. But what does sanity do? Well, it causes you to hallucinate. At early stages, it can be manageable, only adding threats like shadow hands that try to take away your fire at night, but that can be chased away. But slowly, you'll start to notice strange creatures fading in and out of existence. And if your sanity gets really low, they might end up being a little more real than you thought. Sanity alone makes surviving day to day so much harder than in any of the other games in the genre. Suddenly, any last resort style situation, such as eating poisonous food, not only reduces your health for the meantime, but it also has long-term effects that could follow you for multiple hours of gameplay, creating this constant feeling of desperation as you frantically scrounge the world for resources that you know won't be coming back anytime soon, just to stay alive for one more day. Speaking of one more day, the last HUD element that makes this game special is the clock. The day is segmented into 3 stages. Morning, this is going to be where you want to get the bulk of your activity done, as monsters generally fear the light and won't go out during the day. Noon, this is around the time where you want to start finishing up whatever you were doing, or at the very least be ready for night, especially now that the monsters are out. And night, this is where you huddle up. If you get caught out without a fire, you best prepare yourself to not see the sunrise. Now this is fairly standard for a survival game, but one of the things that make Don't Starve's cycle unique is how it changes over the course of an in-game year. The length of each stage changes quite frequently depending on the time of year, so in the winter you can expect to have days that consist largely of noon, and that have longer nights, whereas in summer you can expect the opposite. Speaking of the seasons though, they also pose a massive obstacle in Don't Starve, each very significantly change the game and what tools you have at your disposal. The first one of these is the one that will likely end a lot of your initial runs, winter. Winter makes the game significantly harder, as now walking away from a fire for more than a minute or so will start rapidly killing you. This is something you can overcome though. If you're prepared enough to make warm clothes before the winter and can maintain supplies for temporary fires, then the cold itself will be the least of your worries. No, what you'll be really worried about is just about everything else. Like the fact that food now barely grows at all, leading you to survive with the scraps you saved from before and whatever small amounts of meat you can manage to hunt. There's also all of the new enemies you'll have to face during the winter, many of them being far more dangerous than anything you've encountered before. But hey, let's say you manage to make it out of winter. Well then you'll be given a slight reprieve with spring. Spring is very similar to the starting season of autumn, with the main difference being that during spring, it rains a lot. The main downside of the rain being that it makes fires go out quicker, and that if you get wet enough, you could start freezing to death. But if you're able to make yourself a rain hat, you should be fine for the majority of the season.
Yankee with no brim!
But this is all just to line you up for one more shit show. Summer is difficult, to say the least. Overheating is the main threat here. That means that while nights are short, staying near the fire can kill you almost as quickly if you were to take on the dark. To make things worse, this heat doesn't just affect you. Let's say after winter you decided to make yourself a farm so that you can maintain a food supply. Well, I hope your house isn't flooded with all those rage tears from when you find out your hard work has left you with one large ash pile. Now here's where I would say something like, oh, but going back to autumn afterwards is a nice reprieve from it all. But to be honest, I have no idea. I've never made it that far. Don't Starve is gruelingly difficult. Making sure you stay fed, healthy, and sane, all while dealing with the changing seasons, can be extremely difficult. But if it wasn't enough, Don't Starve also has its fair share of genuinely difficult enemies to throw at you. The first one you'll be likely to encounter while playing are the spiders. These guys are your basic enemy type. They're slower than you, they don't deal insane amounts of damage, but can still manage to be a real pain in the early game if you aren't ready for them. The other thing about spiders is that they reside within nests, and if you leave these nests alone for long enough, then they'll start to grow, eventually adding yellow spiders to them that are far more deadly, and if left for really long, can even turn into a mini-boss called the Spider Queen. On top of spiders, during the first season, you might also find yourself occasionally attacked by hounds. These pesky pups can be rarely found at camps, but will most of the time be encountered by them ambushing you at night with a warning signal of distant barking during noon.
I shot the fucking dog.
Hounds can also have elemental effects depending on the season, so in summer they'll be replaced with firehounds, and in winter, ice hounds. But that's all child's play. While hounds and spiders can occasionally be an annoyance, the real danger comes from the bosses the game has to offer. The first of which you're likely to encounter being the deer clops. Towering over you, making the ground shake when you get close, being strong enough to kill you in only a few hits and draining your sanity in seconds. The deer clops will be the end of a lot of your runs. If not by the fight itself, then by the health and sanity you're left with. Whereas others in the genre have their difficulty come from other players or by simply swarming you with enemies, Don't Starve's difficulty comes from a spiral of long-term effects that be caused by any shock to your system, such as seasons, hunger, or an encounter with even just a single enemy. True survival. In 2016, the developers Cly would also release a multiplayer version of the game, Don't Starve Together. Besides being a multiplayer port, it would also serve as a live service model version of the game, having characters added that aren't available in the base game, as well as countless features and even game modes. This is where most people see the story as finished, but while researching for this video, I actually stumbled across a new game in the franchise, Don't Starve Newhome. While I haven't been able to find out much about the game due to it still being in beta and only being available on mobile devices, it appears to be a full-blown sequel in the franchise, taking on a far more RPG-like gameplay loop involving a story that takes place after the original game's adventure mode, quests, leveling, and classes in place of the character-based system of the original game. Wrapping things up, Don't Starve is a largely forgotten gem of days gone by. It once dominated the talk over survival games, with popularity rivaling even Minecraft, but has since faded from public consciousness. Now believe me when I say I barely even scratched the surface of the game in this video. There are so many features and mechanics that I've never been able to see, like the boating, adventure mode, caves, and whatever the fuck else they've added in the past 10 years. I encourage you all to give it a shot. If you don't already have it, then Don't Starve Together can commonly be found on sale for only a couple bucks, and is worth far more than that in terms of content. For now though, I hope any of you watching are able to appreciate the effort that goes into these videos. Dropping a like or sub would really go a long way to help out when it comes to motivation to keep making these things. With all that said though, this is going to be where I plug my Discord, and I hope you all have a good rest of the day.